hold on.
Yo, Happy New Year.
Hey, what's up, Andy?
Happy New Year, Leon, Alan. How you doing, guys?
Good, man. Good.
Man. How's it going over there?
Very good, very good. Just welcomed in the new year. Hopefully, fresh start. How about yourselves?
Yeah, mostly same old. We had like plans to go like to, I guess, somewhat of a party, but then COVID ended up canceling it. So, but overall, it's pretty good.
Yeah, so long story short, my friend, he had this big party plan. He's like at the beginning of December, he said, guys, all right, we're gonna have I don't care, COVID, Omicron, Megatron, whatever. Let's get together. Let's celebrate. We're all vaccinated, whatever. Let's do this, right?
Sure.
Okay. And then literally the day of around 5 p.m. when we were about to leave in an hour to go to our friend's place, he's like, sorry guys, like I feel a little sick. My girlfriend too, my wife too. And yeah, so they had to cancel. But we improvised anyway. We still hung out. We found a place to chill. Got a little blasted.
Yeah, dude, we literally, it was so crazy because we spent under $20 on New Year's Eve. That I think hasn't happened to me since I was like a teenager. Yeah. Not even sure how that worked out, but that was really wild.
Old school.
Yeah. Seriously. It was like teenagers hanging out in the basement.
Yeah, exactly. So you turn a negative into a positive, I suppose. It's like saving a bit of dollars, eh?
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't think that there was any way that we were going to do anything crazy anyway, because like, up until what was it, like September or whatever, right? Things were going okay and seemingly going better. And then boom, since Omicron, whatever it's called, right? Ever since that shit hit. So it's like, I kind of knew New Year's was going to be a sort of a shit show like about a month ago. I was like, this is going to be whatever this year.
But you're right. We had to improvise. We could have chosen, right, to just stay home, not have done anything, right? Like, come on, we're gonna celebrate anyway. Let's find like a different way to do it.
Exactly.
It was not bad. Actually, we ended up, so we were drinking, played some card games. We had on New Year's Eve, what was that special?
Miley Cyrus and Pete Davidson.
Yeah. Nice. It was not bad. It was actually not bad. I was never actually like really a Miley fan, but then I heard her on Rogan. I was like, okay, all right. I like the person, right? I started to get to know her. And then
she's legit a cool person, man. Like all of the beef against her, it's just they're all fucking haters, man.
Hey, let's jump straight into it if you guys are ready.
Yeah.
Your podcast, wow, it's been awesome. I've just read, I think it was on your story, that your guest that you had on is now the New York mayor. Wow.
Yeah. Eric. Yeah. So that was really cool. Yeah. And so like we had him on, what was it, 2020? And so he didn't tell us on the show, but we already knew that he was going to run for mayor. We just didn't want to blow up his spot, right? But we're like, oh, so Eric, are you running for mayor? And he said something like, well, he's like, things happen in their due time or in their due course, something like that. But we already knew.
He gave a roundabout answer.
Yeah.
We knew he was going to be doing it.
Yeah. So that was really cool. Yeah. So yeah, man, and it was cool because he just got sworn in Times Square on midnight.
Sure. I just read about it.
Yeah.
I've seen your story. And it's wow. What a feeling that must be to interview the New York mayor.
Yeah, now it's like he's legitimately in the span of like, I don't know, a couple of hours now became our most famous guest. So wild.
So what was cool is when we actually interviewed him for the first time.
Oh, this story.
Oh, you think I'm going to tell that? Okay, I'll tell that too.
You should now tell that.
So his background, right? He has like a Buddha painting in the background, and like his angle, like he's like high up.
Oh,
like,
that's
it's not like our angle.
Yeah, that's story.
It's like the camera's looking up. It was pretty cool. Like, and he was also like a really like nice, kind guy, really centered guy, really well spoken. And like what I like about doing a podcast or even seeing a podcast with like a politician is after a while, there's certain times like you're expecting, politicians are going to have like prepared things to say, or there's things they usually say, or they know how to speak because they're a politician. So you don't know if you're getting the genuine person or not. But we spent like close to an hour with him. Well, actually 30 minutes the first time
altogether.
And what, 30 minutes the second time?
Yeah, 30, something like that.
Long story short, after a while of speaking to somebody, you kind of get a gist for a little bit who they are. It's hard to hide it, right? There's things that. So what I like is like he's a genuinely good person, and that's why I was like, I hope this guy becomes the mayor. And then it worked out, actually.
Wait, Andy, do you know the story about the first episode we did with him?
No.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. So this is by far the most embarrassing thing ever on our podcast, right? So check this out, right? So we get him on our podcast, we meet him, right? We're both like, oh my God, it's Eric Adams, like so crazy, right? So we had a different system back then. So like you and I, all of us now at this point, we pretty much have like transferred to Zoom, right? So before we used to use this other system,
Skype.
which what was it?
Skype, and then
Skype.
OBS Stream Studio. Because I used to do Twitch streaming, so I was like, I didn't know how to do podcasting, so I used this like other program instead of.
Yeah. By the way, it was normally pretty good. So like the quality of it was great. The sound quality was dope. And then the picture quality was even better than Zoom. So like we kind of stuck to it because, like it worked for us. Right. So check this out. Right. So Eric comes on the show, we kind of shoot the shit with him for a couple of minutes. He gives us a little bit about his background and stuff. Right. So then, Alen makes it full screen. Then we're just like, oh no, first he presses record, then he makes it full screen. Boom, we're rolling. Right.
And you can't see that it's still. So the way I used the program before, it's not like Zoom. Zoom will say on the top left, it's recording. Right. You'll know if something goes wrong at any point in the middle of the interview, right? Yeah. So that's what's great about Zoom. The other program that I had to like have Skype on and this other program and then make a full screen of Skype. So this way it could like record the screen. So I could never tell if it's still recording, if something went wrong or not. It was always like, we're like hoping it works.
Yeah, but no problems, right? So usually we do pretty well and it all works out, right? So we're going through the interview, right? Eric is like, all right, man, thanks so much for having me on. We're like, yeah, man, like this was super enlightening. Like, thank you so much, right? So boom, we're done, right? And we're like, oh my God, like that was so amazing. We just had Eric on, right? So I text Rachel, who's his deputy secretary, right? So I text her like, hey, like, thanks so much. Like Eric was great. We're done, right? So then Alan's like, yo, I can't find the episode. And I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? He's like, no, it's legit not here. And
oh no.
Okay, so he's right. That's the right way to tell the story. But I'll tell you this: he's back here on the couch.
Yes.
He's like finishing up. He's like texting her. Thank you. I'm also like, oh, that was so cool. We had a politician. Brooklyn Borough president. This is cool. He might be.
And you can imagine like all of the anxiety built up. Like that's done now, right? So now there's just pure relief.
So here's what happens. He's back here, and then I'm like staring at my screen, kind of like this, right? And I'm like, and then all of a sudden I go from like having a happy face to like,
oh no,
like that, and then I'm like. And then I like something's wrong. Like Leon feels it. He's like, "What's wrong?" I said, "Nothing." I'm still over here trying to figure it out with my mouse in hand and all that. And then I was like, "For real, what's wrong?" And I said, "I can't find the episode."
But wait, it gets better before it gets worse. Oh, yeah. So then he finds it and he's like, "No, oh my God, thank God, no, it's here." We're like, "Oh, thank God," right? So then Alen clicks on it. He looks at it and then he's like, "Oh my God." I'm like, "What?" He's like, it recorded 2 minutes. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. So literally, as we're looking at it, all it has is the beginning of the clip where Eric is like, hey, man, I love your podcast. The thing that we usually never do is seize the moment. And he's like going into the philosophy of it, right? And as he's about to like really just start talking about like what he does, right? Kind of like what the job is and whatnot, right? Just whatever, just digging deeper. I don't remember exactly how it went. But as soon as that stops, 2 minutes and 33 seconds, boom, clip is over. And that's all we got.
But I will say this: if you go to our page on YouTube, our channel page, the intro video is his 1 minute of the 2 minutes of him saying, "I love your podcast" and all of that. So we got something out of it. And then we interviewed him again.
Wait. So just to backtrack, because this is what like the kind of person that he is. So then I text Rachel, right? And I'm like, yo, I don't even know how to tell you this, but we lost the episode. And then she's like, what do you mean? And I said, no, we legitimately lost the episode. I was like, it did not record. And I gave her like the rundown of what happened. And then she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I was like, we're sorry. I was like, we are so sorry.
Oh, I felt so bad. Yeah. I couldn't even look him in the face for a little while.
I was like, we are so sorry for wasting this guy's time, right? And then she said, look, don't worry about it. Get back to me in like maybe 3-4 weeks. We'll try to work something out. And then, so this was at the height of, before the height of Black Lives Matter. And then I remember I'm sitting there one day. I don't remember exactly what I'm doing. And I text Alen and I'm like, yo, I have a good idea. So if Eric ever wants to come back, we could do a show specifically about not only Black Lives Matter police reform, but about his time in the NYPD and his perspective of just like protests, police violence, etc. Right? Especially since now he's like bidding for mayor where maybe this could kind of serve him too, right? So I text Rachel. She's like, hey, I love the idea. I just got to run it by him. I'll get back to you. But she's like, it doesn't sound like there would be a problem. Literally, and then 2 weeks later, we had him back on. So this was like, there was, I think, maybe a 4.5 week gap between the two appearances. But the fact that he even did it the second time for us, we're like, wow, this dude's amazing, man.
It just proves what kind of guy he is. He's
Yeah.
a genuine guy. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, as soon as he comes on the second time, we're like, Eric, we're so sorry. And he's like, don't worry about it. These things happen.
Wow.
He was a cool guy.
Yeah.
Wow. What I like about him is so you would think that, you know, somebody in his position, he's too busy. If he has one interview, he has 20 interviews, and not just interviews, then he has like paperwork and this and that and a family and everything. And how do you say yes to somebody twice, especially if they make a mistake the first time?
Yeah.
But it worked out really well. And also because we got him on during the Black Lives Matter movement, it was a really important time. Actually, hearing what he had to say and his perspective on it was a really important thing.
And just
for the podcast, just in general.
And then to even credit Vegas. So as soon as I told Vegas this the night out, Vegas is like, yo, don't worry about it. The second show is going to be even better. And I was like, he does not know what the fuck he's talking about. No way. And then no, he called it, man. He really called it. So you know what it was? The first show was okay. Like I didn't love it just because like we were just trying to get to know him. And I don't want to, so it wasn't bad. It was like, it was a little bit, it was philosophical, right? So, which is cool. I was just like, you know, we do this all the time. I'm like, this isn't special, right?
No.
Okay, hold on.
Disagree.
Okay, you can disagree. Give me like, can I finish the thought? So yeah, and then the second show that we did, right? It was powerful, man. Like, so just actually talking about the, you know, the social movement at the time, what was going on around the country. So I felt like there was much of an emotional pull for the second time around than the first time. So it's not to say again, the first show wasn't good. It wasn't as good as it could have been. Go ahead. You can disagree.
Okay. So no, the first time he said like the coolest things. He started talking about he was like you know, like talking about like being in the moment, overcoming obstacles in life. But like the way he presented himself and like the way he worded things, I felt like I'm like listening to him speak, and I'm like, I feel like this is supposed to happen. Like it felt like a sort of like a destiny thing. I'm like, yo, this guy's preaching, like he's saying like really good shit. And then it didn't come through and people didn't really get to hear it. But he's a really wise guy when we spoke like philosophically and stuff like that.
We got into like existentialism and Viktor Frankl. So that was really cool. But you know what it was? The second episode, it felt like was much more urgent than the first one.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like everything fell in place for the second time. Like you say, it was a bit, you know, better like time with the Black Lives Matter, and but yeah, what an awesome feeling to
I feel like we really lucked out the second time around, because like, I mean, if we could have planned it that way, I would have said, yeah, let's like wait another month, you know, for like something important to happen in the culture, right? For us to have him on. Obviously we couldn't have known that was going to happen, but yeah, man, no, we really lucked out with that. I feel like honestly, that was one of the biggest blessings in disguise.
For sure. I mean, I love the subjects that you talk about, you know, the politics, you know, and especially the psychological stuff that you guys go into, you know, and I'm a really big advocate for mental health. And, you know, in 2022 now, and what advice would you give anyone, you know, going into this year for who's struggling maybe with mental health?
You want to start or should I? Okay, so be vulnerable, man. So try your best. Look, you don't have to see a therapist. That's fine, right? I get it. So some people just don't like therapy. Some people can't afford it. All good. But literally just reach out for help. So the thing that especially, and I get this all the time in my practice with straight dudes don't say anything. They don't ever want to talk about anything important, especially related to their feelings. They'll sit there and they'll shoot the shit with you about sports, music, movies, whatever, right? Whatever like popular thing under the sun, which is cool. And that has its sort of time, right? But yeah, man, the thing is like with vulnerability, especially again with straight men, they're afraid of the fact that like, you know, they're going to be looked at as cowards or like, you know, pussies, right? And they're like, oh, you know, I want to feel like I can handle this all on my own. You can't, man. You fucking can't. So all of the best of us and all of us end up asking for help. So my whole thing is like, it's okay to ask for help. And the thing is, there's going to be other people on the other end who will want to help you. And like every time your girlfriend says like, hey, I wish you'd open up to me, she really means it. She's not going to criticize you for like sharing your feelings with her and telling her that you're sad. It's okay.
Sure. That's a good answer.
There's actually a lot of things that like come to mind to want to say. It's hard to like pinpoint one, but I would say one is definitely to try not to resist so much what you're feeling or what you're going through.
Okay.
A lot of times, the reason why we feel a lot of pain, especially in terms of like the things happening in the news, the pandemic, maybe people in your family might be getting sick, and it's like something that's very alarming to a lot of people. It's hard to deal with. For example, my dad got COVID earlier last year, and he was in the hospital. He had to be hospitalized because like his oxygen level went from it's supposed to be around I believe between 95 and 100 the way they measure it, and his went down all the way to 76.
That's so wild.
Coughing like crazy, this that, and if he didn't get help from an ambulance, he actually might have passed away, right? So it was like that level. Then when he went to the hospital, he's there for a couple of weeks. Nobody knows what's going on. His condition's improving. It's getting worse. It's improving, getting worse, staying worse. This whole roller coaster, right? And then, from my position, what kind of kept me, obviously his position is obviously what's most important, like, right? But like in terms of somebody from the outside, like his family member, I had to know that I couldn't lose my shit, so to speak, right? Like I have to be alert. I have to be vigilant. I have to be there for other family members. I can't just like try to resist what's happening, try to run away from it, try to try to hide from how I feel about it or from the reality, right? I had to be alert, try to as often as I can't visit my dad, but there was a way I could call him and stuff like that, which is a little hard to get through to him too. But there were things we could do, or try to text, whatever. And
you prioritized well. I remember that.
Yeah. So so the thing is, I had to understand that like I can't if I want this to go well, I can't help it. How should I put this? Like sometimes when you resist, you can make things worse. Sure. You could and I wanted to add nothing to this. Okay, there you go. I wanted to add nothing to the situation besides anything helpful, right? And so by accepting what's happening, by trying to be there from show that that I love my dad, sure, right, and that he feels that from us, and that like we want him to be better, and like try to as much as possible get his like. This is going to sound like very interesting, but like his like fighting spirit up, if that makes any sense. Like, like get that morale going. Your family's here, everybody's behind you. Everybody wants the good result. We're not even steering this towards the bad result. Sure. Like as much like power as possible in like him getting better. And so pretty much if I had to boil it down, I guess, don't resist what's happening. And then also try as much as possible to intend for the best, like whatever is the best result that you could go for. Sure. There's more. There's being present to the moment too, but yeah. I would say that.
I kind of know where you're coming from. I mean, I've been to Alen back in 2021, and I've had a few deaths in the family, and I know what you mean by like kind of keeping strong. And with my granddad passed away a few months ago, and just seeing my nan. Thank you. Just seeing my nan just heartbroken. My whole family was just heartbroken. So me being, I wanted to kind of be strong for them. So if I crumbled, I think if they had seen me crumble, I think it impacted them even more. So I kind of know what you mean with the point.
Yeah.
What you was kind of making there. I mean, how is your father now?
Oh, he's good. He's good. I mean, so that's the good thing. Yeah, he's good.
He evolved. He leveled up.
Oh, he leveled up. No. His
hero's journey.
So his I mean, okay. So by being bedridden for a while in the hospital, though, his muscles. Long story short, like they I forgot what it's called.
Atrophied.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So they atrophied a bit, right? So they're still not as big as they were prior to being hospitalized.
Get into the gym, man.
So he's done physical therapy, he's done that kind of stuff. His condition's a million times better, but it's not like perfect. He might be like maybe 85, 90% now that some time's passed. But it's good. He's good. Yeah.
Good. It's good to hear. Good to hear.
Well, wait, Andy, can I ask you a question then?
For sure.
All right, so what do you think, man? What about from your like perspective, everything you've gone through in the past year? Like, what advice would you give people?
Just to be strong. Just to be strong.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be quite honest, I was suicidal back in early part of the year in 2021. A lot of stuff going on with the children and a lot of stuff going on around where I live. Stuff that I can't control. I can't control that, but it did get to me, and I went a bit. My mind went. Around about April, May time. Me nan died, and I think that set it off, and my mental health just went down the pan. So in reflection, I mean, me and my wife sat down a few nights ago. We just reflected on the year and what we've been through and how we've come out of it, and just to be strong. Just to answer your question, just to be strong, just to keep your head up, as Pat would say, keep your head up. And, there's always a brighter day, and there is. But at that moment in time, I didn't think there was a brighter day. I didn't think, everything that I was going through. I mean, I've had mental health issues years ago when I was bodybuilding, but nothing compared to what I've been through this year. But it's stuff that I can't control. It's nothing to do with the pandemic or anything like that. It was just seeing my kids go through what they've been through. Obviously, Samson's been in and out of hospital. It was touch and go. He had an infection. It was touch and go whether he was on high dependency unit. I wasn't allowed there because of COVID. He was only allowed one parent there. So everything come to a boiling point early on last year, and I didn't think I was going to make the year, to be honest.
Well, the way you and Liz responded to a seizure, man, that was so impressive. Like just the fact that you guys acted so quickly and obviously saved his life. I'm so impressed by that, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, it's like he goes into a seizure. He holds his breath. He stops breathing. But I think it's to do with his condition. We think he's got like a genetic condition. So it's very, very rare. There's a little known about it. So we're just like playing it by ear and going off what the doctor said. And but he's not had a seizure now for a good few weeks. So fingers crossed. Hopefully, just seeing the kids going through what they've been through. It's destroying my mental health. And but I'm on the up now. And
and by the way, just for your other two sons, man, just seeing you in that kind of situation. So if you could kind of see dad in that sort of stressful situation and see you handle your business and respond to it as well as you did, that we talked about role models, which for an episode coming out today, and how important that is, especially in terms of building moral and kind of just emotional character. Dude, you are probably the best example for your kids.
Wow, thank you, Leon.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate that. I mean, me and Liz did we had a good chat about it a few nights ago, like I say, and just reflected on everything that we've been through, and it's onwards and upwards in 2022, I think. So fingers crossed. But
I hear you.
Yeah, just keep your head up, and there is always a brighter day. That's what I've took out of 2021.
I love that.
Yeah. So I mean, with mental health is everywhere. In 2021 and going into 2022. I mean, does it kind of bother you that it's now the cool thing to talk about?
Oh, that's a great question. Actually,
I love it.
Yeah, thank God, man. Oh my God. Imagine if we tried to do this podcast like 20 years ago, it would have been like super intellectual, man. Because especially like if let's say, and I'm not saying that this is like the case, but I'm sure most of our audience is like male, right? I don't even doubt that, right? So most dudes do not like to watch shows about feelings and stuff. And I mean, personal growth, yes, obviously, but not like, kind of talking about sadness, fear, especially. So I don't think we could have done this 20 years ago. So it's to me, at least, I can't obviously speak for Alen, but it's a really great thing, man, because I never thought that we'd get to this point where, and like I grew up in a community, man, where all of this shit was seen as cowardly, right? So you couldn't talk about any of this stuff, right? You were constantly labeled a pussy if you ever like talked about being sad or like cried about being bullied or whatever. Like, you know, you just pick yourself up and you keep it moving. So the thing is, a lot of us internalize this stuff, and as we kind of went through our lives, right, we developed depressive disorders because you can't just like let that go, right? I mean, you carry it with you, right? And it's like it sort of colors the way you see the rest of the world. So unless you actually deal with it, with or without therapy, it's not as relevant. It's gonna still stay with you. So I love the fact that people are way more open about it, and I really appreciate the fact. And let me just see how I can phrase this. I appreciate the fact that we're not so that we don't harp on genders anymore, where it's not like, okay, this is masculine and this is feminine. I like the fact that gender is more fluid, because the fact is, like, again, you go back 20, 30 years ago, the idea was like, oh, if you're a man, this is what you're supposed to be like. If you're a woman, this is what you're supposed to be like. So the fact that it's more fluid actually opens it up for like straight guys, obviously, to be able to just like express their feelings and not be chastised for it. And I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
From my perspective, it's really, so on one level, the fact that they're kind of commercializing mental health, right,
That is a thing.
is it's fine. That's probably a symptom of it being popular, people trying to make money on
And they
it.
commercialize everything that, like, you know, goes
course.
up and
There's like things like BetterHelp. Not saying, by the way, the BetterHelp is
oh, it's crap, by
bad.
the way. I do not go to BetterHelp.
No.
Okay, well, you used BetterHelp years ago, right?
No.
Not now,
I don't
right?
need, so I don't know. But the thing is, I mean, I don't want to take away from what you're saying, but really quickly, yeah. So they actually not only abuse the therapists, they even like abuse the clients too. So just go say whatever you're going to say. I don't want to get into it. It's too much.
Long story short, you got these different companies that are offering like telehealth with a mental health therapist, nice convenient ways for people to sort of see a therapist without maybe going to an office, maybe if they're not comfortable. It's a great idea, like as a concept. Whether that company does it well or not is whatever. But what's cool about it is honestly, that's like part of even my dream, which is just that people start to sort of critically think a little bit about their emotions, their beliefs, how it impacts other people. And it's really cool that mental health is becoming popular, because I mean, for example, if let's say you don't know that you might be projecting something onto someone, like, I don't know, let's say Leon is, I'll give an example. I wouldn't do this, but this is just an example of something somebody might do. Mm-hmm. So I have this red cup here. Leon and I are chilling here. I come back to the room, the red cup is missing, right? And let's say for some reason, I think Leon took the red cup, or no, let's say Leon leaves and the red cup is missing. Leon stole my red cup, you know? And let's say that's where my first thought goes. And now I'm kind of paranoid about it. I'm thinking, oh, that bastard. And then I like text him like, you stole my red cup. And then he's like, what the hell? Why are you texting me that? Mm-hmm. Whatever. Did you check anywhere else? And then let's say I check somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And let's say it's in my kitchen, and maybe he just like drank that cup and brought it there.
I love that you're using this example.
No.
This actually happened, but not with the cup, but this actually happened. That's why.
Oh, I'm not even using that. I've actually had a version of this before.
Yeah.
So, and then we find out that he just put it somewhere else. And I just got angry, went through a whole paranoid thing and projected onto him all these different things, only to find out that he never did it. And then like, I feel like a fool for that. Right. Which is the proper, that's messed up to think your friend did something underhanded or whatever. Right. People don't just do a version of that with their friends. They do that with people they don't know. They do that with the drivers on the street. They'll project all sorts of things on like somebody, they did this to me. They couldn't have their own reason for why they drove however they did or whatever they did. It's like, it's something against me, you know? And that's like one version of it.
You know why I love that you said that? So going back to that old kind of like tough guy mentality, you would never admit that you're wrong, man. You would never say like, oh, hey, you know what? Like, I'm so sorry. You'd be like, oh, fuck you. Like, why wouldn't I think that? Right. You would kind of get defensive and find a way to like build up and maintain your ego.
Oh, yeah. Some people. Yeah. Right. Different people handle it at different levels. Maybe at that point they'd realize what they did and then say sorry. Right. Or they would keep going with it.
Double down.
And be like, why'd you put it over there then? And then like some new argument thread or whatever. Right. But like my main point is that like the fact that it's getting popular is good, because then it's just sort of slowly getting concepts from mental health into people's heads, right? Like my thing with the show, for example, is to try to get as many good ideas out there, get people to realize like sometimes there's more than one side to something. Sometimes somebody else is just like you, and they also think they're the good guy. Like everybody thinks they're the good guy, right? And maybe they're in their head, like they did what they did for a reason, and maybe instead of thinking it's something against you, maybe try to find out what their reason is. And then when you do, maybe you get a better relationship with that person, and it has all these like net positive results just from that. Yeah, it's important. Also telling people like what you believe is important. Like, for example, what your beliefs are kind of become in a way like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
Sometimes if somebody in their head, like all day, let's say they have like, they're thinking a lot, but like bad thoughts, like ruminating, right? That's what it's called. So they'll be ruminating, they'll have bad thoughts all day. And maybe it's automatic. So, it's hard. It's not something that's easy to control, right? But let's say that your beliefs are important. The things that you say to yourself are important every day. If 90% of the things you say to yourself aren't like great, maybe then the idea is like, let me try to insert something else in there. Maybe I'll try to say better things in my own head, or actually try to make a habit of thinking other kinds of ways. Some people have a problem with like what's called not aspirate affirmations. People have problems with like saying like, oh, I am great, I am awesome, I am intelligent, I am lovable. Like there's things, sometimes people write this stuff down, and it's a little kind of like from the self-help world. I don't think it's like a psychotherapist thing. No. But even psychotherapists, they have their own way of sort of getting people to think differently, right? Like maybe Leon, you could speak on that, whether it's like cognitive thought record or
well, it's more so about challenging, or kind of to be even more broad about it, like to explore your beliefs, like to figure out why you believe the thing that you do, what's the evidence for and against it, and then kind of assess those beliefs based on the actual information in front of you. So it's a little bit different than affirmations. So
but what's great about that is that starts to make you more conscious of the things that you're thinking, instead of it being so automatic. You start to think, why was I thinking this thing? Maybe your therapist will ask you, would you choose to think that? If if you had a choice, if you had control right now, would you actually let yourself think these thoughts? And then sometimes that changes how like a person's relationship to their thoughts. Because if, for example, you have, let's say 90% of my thoughts are negative, but then I ask myself, but would I really choose to think these thoughts? And then I start to think, well, wait, so if I wouldn't choose to, why are these thoughts coming to me? And then that's a weird question that starts to like shift like where your attention goes. And maybe it'll lead you down a path of lessening how often you think that way, or something like that. It's a little general what I'm saying. It's going to be different for different people, but just that awareness is enough sometimes for people to be like, whoa, yeah, I didn't, where are these thoughts coming from? Is this me?
I've had that happen with patients before, where somebody would say something out loud and they're like, that's fucking stupid. Did I just really say that? And I'm like, yeah.
Wow. This is why I love the podcast, because every single subject, you kind of take it and then spin it around and give it a different kind of angle. So, brilliant answer there. And I think, my personal perspective, I'm kind of like exactly what Leon touched on with the kind of area that I grew up in. If you kind of admitted you was thinking these thoughts, or you kind of had to put on a tough guy persona kind of thing. So going back to when I was growing up, we could never talk about the stuff, what we're talking about now. You'd be labeled as, soft or. So I think it is it's a great thing that people are opening up, especially like you say, tough men, which.
Dude, 20 years ago, not only would we not have been able to get somebody like Napoleon on the show, but we would have definitely not got somebody like Napoleon on to talk about his feelings.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus, one thing that's cool is there's always a way for each person to sort of make these kinds of teachings fit their lifestyle.
Sure.
For example, if somebody's interested in being tough anyway and still kind of sticking with that, not that you have to. Let's say that's really your background, right? I'm not going to say to them like, disregard their culture and stuff like that. If that's your culture, that's fine. Then I would just kind of frame it as you're a stronger man or you're a tougher man if you don't resist if you argue, for example, if you resist reality, which is an interesting way to phrase that, but if you resist what's happening, that means you're arguing with what's going on, right? And logically, you can't argue with what's happening, right? So you almost look like less of a man or less tough if you're arguing with what's happening rather than accepting what's happening. So you might just phrase that for that tough guy like that. You're much stronger when you actually come face to face with the reality. Also, you might also say like, you might think it's strong to be rigid, like nothing can move you, right? You won't change your opinion. And there's a certain strength to being like kind of bullheaded and having a certain perspective.
Right, you shouldn't be gullible.
But what's great is that if you tell them that, you know, if you there's strength and flexibility too. Just you'd have to be a little nuanced about it. You can't say that, you know, every time somebody says a new point, you have to change your perspective on something. That's a little wishy-washy, right? Then it's like there's not a strength to like what you're thinking, right? But if it's actually a good point, and then you are flexible about it and you take it in, you could still come off very strong. Sure. And it's almost even stronger than somebody who's rigid and won't like accept like a new point that's actually correct or something like that. Right. Sure.
Yeah. And even just going back to like the point about being kind of vulnerable and open, right? I mean, in our kind of hoods, right, it was more so about being preyed on, right? So, you know, you kind of put yourself out there, right? And then you become a victim, and then somebody smells weakness and they kind of pounce, right? Yeah. So, and the point that I was making earlier with, you know, kind of going back to just straight dudes and opening up, that doesn't happen that much anymore. Most of the time it's like, okay, I'm going to use a silly example, but yo, honestly, I thought this was a good fucking movie. Have you guys seen 22 Jump Street?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you remember? I remember like they go back to school, and then it's like the whole landscape kind of changes, and everybody's now like open and vulnerable, and they're like gay friendly, and they're like, you know, they're super like inclusive, right? And I was like, yeah, that's actually the world now. That's why I kind of really like the story. And you know, Channing Tatum's character is like this like bully asshole, and the popular kids are like, whoa, bro, like what are you doing? Like you're a dick. You can't pick on people anymore. Like what year is this, right? So yeah, it's like, I mean, obviously it's a comedy, and I get it. It's a bit of satire, but the point is that that's what the world is like now. So if your mindset is still like stuck in the 90s where like, you know, you're going to be preyed upon because again, you're kind of opening up and you think that you're going to be perceived as being weak, and the chances of that happening on you anymore, I'm not saying that they're super low because context is obviously important, but in the vast majority of places, I mean, unless you're in the South, in the vast majority of places, right, you'll be pretty much accepted and people will want to be helpful. I think, be helpful, because I think for the most part, people do want to help others.
Sure, for sure. I think the world's changed for the better in that respect, you know, with mental health. And but yeah, brilliant responses. That, and like I say, that's why I love your show. I love your podcast. You make me, you know, you make people look at things at a different angle, and that's brilliant. I mean, 113 episodes you've done so far.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite?
Oh, that's such a... I actually have an answer. Do you want to go first?
Well, I don't know how much I could talk about it's my favorite, but I liked one that comes to mind. I think there are other ones that were like amazing.
Yeah.
But Michael Shermer.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a real cool guy. He's like a science skeptic. He's been on Joe Rogan's show before.
Many times.
And wow. I used to listen to this guy like all the time, not all the time, but enough to be like, I like this guy. I like his like perspective, his take on things. And then when we got him on the show, I was like, first of all, I was like, really? We got him? I was like, I was shook. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So like, it was just fun interviewing him and just being in the same arena as that guy. I don't know. It's like when you, it's not like he's a hero to me. I wouldn't put it that way. But he's definitely like one of the figures where I was like, this is like one of the guys in podcasting or like in science who, you know, if you spoke to him, that's like, damn, like that's an interesting place to be in the same area as this guy. So it felt good from that perspective.
And the fact that he said that, like he tweeted about us and he said like, this podcast is worth listening to. I was like, what? Yeah.
In case you were thinking otherwise.
Yeah. I was like, wow, that was so cool.
Wow.
Yeah. So, okay. So for me, it would, okay. So I have a definite one, but it's one that's a little bit interesting because it's not somebody that people would necessarily know. But yo, this podcast I think you would agree was completely epic. So, Andy, obviously, I'm an existentialist thinker. I love thinking about sort of death, right? Meaning and whatnot, right? So, yeah, I know. So we had, so we had one of the, he's pretty much, I wouldn't call him the godfather, but he's a godfather of existentialist thought. So he came out with this book with Tom, I think his last name is Brzezinski. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. So called Worm at the Core. And so it's literally about how like the death anxiety permeates everything that we do, right? So it's not, I mean, they say it's at the core. I don't necessarily agree. I think it's multifaceted, but I do agree that it's a big part of our decision making on a daily basis. And so they argue that death anxiety is like literally, it's in everything that we do. It's behind everything that we think about. It's pretty much the kind of, let's say, what'd you call it? It's like, I mean, I guess the worm at the core, right? It's like the thing that sort of gnaws at you, right? As you're going through your life. So it's Sheldon Solomon. So we did this show with him. I really didn't know what to expect. So he came on and I think it took us a while to actually get him. He just did the Lex Friedman podcast, which is, by the way, so Alen and I are both huge Lex fans. For me, it was my favorite fucking Lex Friedman episode ever, right? I was hooked. So first of all, Sheldon is this really like humble guy and he's really like unassuming, right? So as they were going through the show, like Lex is just like complimenting him over and over. Sheldon's like, oh, okay, I mean, thanks. Like he doesn't even know what to say, right? Yeah. So they do this show and like Sheldon loved him, right? And Lex loved him. Lex is like, wow, like this is like all of the stuff that I constantly think about. So I'm like, yo, we got to get Sheldon on, right? And so Sheldon is like really popular in the world of academia. So if you're in that world, like he doesn't do like many appearances. So he's not like Shermer in the sense of he's not going to go on Rogan or whatever. So it was actually surprising for me that he went on Lex, but I guess kind of not because Lex is an academic. So I'm like, okay, yeah, why wouldn't he have him on? So when he came on Lex, I was like, oh, maybe we can have him on. So I emailed Sheldon and Sheldon's kind of like, guys, I'm pretty busy. I have a lot going on. And he like kicks the can way down the road, right? He's like, look, here's this. I'll give you a date. If you want it, I'll come on, right? Literally like 3 months later, right? He's like, if you want, I'm free in 3 months. I was like, we will fucking take it. I was like, I don't care. We'll take it, right? So yeah, so he comes on the show late November of 2020, right? So he comes on the show and we're like, okay, we'll try to like go for an hour with him or whatever. And like as the show is going and we're talking about these issues, like it's getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And you could tell he's really into it, right? And he keeps like complimenting us. And he's like, wow, guys, like, holy shit, like, you know about this stuff? Like, because he probably looked at us, looked at our ages. He's like, I'm sure when he saw the podcast initially, he's like, oh, okay, cool. Like 2 young guys, whatever, sure, I'll come on, right? But as he started talking to us, he's like, oh, like, yeah, this conversation is like really great, right? And literally we're looking at the time and we're about an hour and 42 minutes into it. And it's like, okay, yo, we should like wrap up. We've covered everything that we could possibly cover. So not only was it the longest podcast, but it was also the podcast that I feel like that kind of flew by the quickest. And it was also for us in terms of depth, the deepest podcast we've ever done. So just all across the board, I felt like both of us, right? So me, of course, because I'm a fan of his work, I already knew him. Alen, not so much, but both of us were blown away by him. Yeah, it was like, holy shit, that was a fucking ride.
He was also just a cool guy. Like his style of like I felt like he's from the 70s.
Oh, and he's from Brooklyn, like, hey, by the way. Yeah, he's from Brooklyn. So yeah. So he doesn't live here anymore. He lives in upstate New York. But like he's like, oh shit, you guys are Brooklyn? He's like, where? Like Sheepshead Bay? He's like, I'm from Sheepshead Bay. We're like, what?
It's like a small world.
Yeah. So we were like, yo, dude, if you're ever around, please, like, we'd love to hang out with you. Like, he's one of those people because he's so unpretentious. Like a lot of times you talk to academics and they're just going to talk about like, maybe something that they're like shows that they've been on or whatever, maybe like books that they're writing. And look, I'm sure Sheldon's got that going on too, but he will actually sit there and talk with you about the ideas themselves. So he's so unassuming, man. It's so great. Like he will sit there and he will talk to you about the research itself and you're like blown away by this. You're like, holy shit. And the thing is, he's also like a radical in the field because most academics do not like talking about death anxiety because they don't just like thinking about death in general and they kind of just automatically dismiss it, even though in like psychology, I mean, Freud was the first one who brought up the death instinct. And most academics now are like, that's silly. We don't think about death that often. And then here comes Sheldon and Tom, right? And they're like, no, actually, we think about death pretty often. We just fucking suppress it and we don't want to talk about it. Here's all of the evidence for that. And we're like, wow, this is amazing. And his and his studies are just so fucking interesting too. And the thing with Sheldon, it's like, yeah. So with him, he doesn't care. Like, he doesn't care what you think of him, right? He came like he had a hat on, like this beanie hat on. He had like a hoodie on. You know, like a lot of people come on their shows, they're very, very well dressed. Sheldon doesn't care about that, man. You're like, here's this guy who's like, no, let's fucking sit down and talk about the ideas. This is what matters. And I really appreciated that about him.
Wow. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to revisit that episode.
Oh my God,
he talks about facing your own death, pretty much, and the benefits of doing that. And pretty much the way we covered it, I remember even having this sort of feeling while talking to him. I'm like, damn, like I felt like I was getting at, like, I don't know, I started to feel things that I don't know. You don't think about death that often.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, unless somebody brings it up.
Yeah.
Right. And
because you don't want to. Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've done it before for sure. Don't get me wrong. There have been periods in my life where I've definitely thought about it. But the way he came at it, I don't know. It's hard. It's like a feeling response I want to describe this with. Instead of just being logical about it, I actually remember just feeling better about death, like not welcoming it, but being kind of like mindful of it, and knowing that, you know, that's something that eventually comes to you. And we even talked about this concept of dying before you die.
Right.
Like, essentially,
that was Brian. That was Brian.
He brought it up a little bit too.
Okay.
Yeah.
That I don't remember. Okay.
Yeah. Which is cool. It's an interesting concept. It's like kind of having a sort of, when you accept death, it's like having a sort of like a mental death. And so by dying before you die, you're not afraid anymore of that happening, but you're still alive. So you kind of have a little more freedom. Yeah. And it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that he said something along the lines of like, as a culture, we have to stop pissing our pants about death already. He's like, come on. He's like, we have to deal with this. And I love that. I love how in your face he is about this topic that literally everybody avoids.
That's my viewing for tonight. I'm definitely good. When was it? November last year?
Yeah, so it was. I literally think the episode is called "Facing." Something like
the courage to face death in life.
There it is.
Like
the courage to face death in life. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know, episode maybe 50, 54. No, not even 50. I think it's 60 something, like episode 60 something. Yeah. This was like November 2020.
Sure.
Right. Oh, and right at the height of the pandemic. Right. So that's why it was so important.
Sure. Definitely going to view that. You know, but he even inspired Muta to kick on with his podcast. I mean, how does it feel to know that your podcast inspired Muta?
That was okay. So I'll answer that one first, just because, you know, that's my hero. So yeah. So with Moo, yeah, man. So the fact is, like with him, first of all, I never thought that anything like that could happen. And look, just you know, to kind of like to kind of tone it down a little bit, because I'm sure that's not exactly what happened. I'm pretty sure. So because Moo had a bunch of podcasts already, like before, right? So he forayed into the field, right? What I think happened is, I don't think that we particularly inspired him. Not to give us too much credit. What I think happened is that he was like bouncing around ideas of doing like podcasts with different people. So what I think happened is, when he saw us and saw like the dynamic, he's like, this is it. This is the idea, right? So he's like, if I have like somebody that I could kind of like have as a partner, because he did like two Saudis and an Arabian, or no, I'm sorry, two Saudis and an American. That one I think had like 2 episodes. Then he did like the Mutabil show, which I think only also had like 2 to 3 episodes. I think when he saw our dynamic, he was like, oh, okay, so this idea that I've already had to have the podcast, like to do something with it, right? This is what I want to do, right? I want to have like a dynamic with another person where we could just like talk about our experiences, have guests on, right? So that was really cool that we inspired him about that. So that I never thought obviously could happen. And I like the fact that he even acknowledged it. And he's like, yeah, man, you guys like pushed me to take this journey more seriously. So that was really cool. What was cool with Moo is the fact that he really just appreciated, he appreciated like what we did. And I also really liked the fact that he appreciated the review that I wrote for him about the book. That was really cool that he was so grateful about it. That was like, to me, I was on cloud 9.
Sure.
For me, I was like, I don't know if he drew inspiration from us. I think like, if anything, we might be one of the inspirations.
Yeah.
Like I agree with what you said. Like he saw the dynamic. Yeah. If you have another person podcasting with you, you could get that feedback off of each other,
right?
Get each other a little hype. One person doesn't know what to say, the other person does, you know, whatever, something like that. And it's not always dependent on having a guest. Sometimes you could just kind of shoot the shit, and you know, or sometimes talk about something important too, and it's not always reliant on someone. So yeah, and then seeing him do his own thing, like I like it. I like the setup. I like the I guess Vegas is helping him with it, right? No? Well,
they have their own, like, so they actually have Saudi dudes.
I'll tell you this, the set looks really good,
Mhm.
really professional. I like how he promotes it. I like the little every time he has a post, like it's a very personal post about like what the episode is about. And I like it. It's different from like our style is like we tell you what the episode is about. His like he's like this is me paraphrasing, but he's kind of like, hey guys, check this out, talk to this guy, my brother, like this was awesome, this is amazing. And he has like that kind of way to sort of describe his interactions, and I like that style too. And yeah, it's looking good, and I like the engagement that he gets, and I can tell this is going to be a thing that is continuing.
And I think why it works for him is probably the same reason why it works for me. So when I do like solo interviews, I pretty much just say the first thing that's on my mind, because, you know, I'm trying to keep like anybody, like, you know, if you're having a one-on-one conversation, you just shoot the shit, right? Whatever comes off the top of your head. It's not always a great thing for an interview. So what happens is, like, some questions are good, some questions are not so good, because I mean, you know, you don't want to pause and be like, okay, this person said this, what should I say in response? Right? You're not going to do that in a show, just like you wouldn't do that in a conversation. So the great thing when it's us two, right? And I'm sure it's the same thing for Alen, I get a little more time to actually think about where I want to take the conversation next from my, you know, kind of from my end. So if somebody says something and Alen automatically has an answer, right, I'll just be like, oh, great, like, go say whatever you need to say, and then I could like think about what I want to say, right? And then I'm sure you do the same thing. But like when but when you're interviewing somebody one-on-one, again, sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes I've even had this before where the guest was like, I'm not really sure what you're asking. I think this is what you're saying. But I'm like, oh, fuck, if I just had like 2 more seconds to think about it, I could have landed better.
Sure. I totally get what you're saying there. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys just bounce off each other. You know, I've said it from the beginning. You know, you do bounce off each other. It's like the dynamic duo.
Yeah, that's why I think we work so well, right? Like, first of all, like, we have the same interests already, right? And the thing is, what I think I love the most is that we trust each other. So like, if Alen talks, I'm like, great, I'm sure he's going to do great. And then again, I could like take a little bit of time to think about what I'm going to say. And then sometimes, honestly, I don't even say it, and I just bounce off whatever he's saying, because I'm like, oh, I actually have a better response to what you're saying than what the guest said.
Yeah. Or sometimes he just comes up with a story out of nowhere. Like if I start talking about something, he's like, oh, that reminds me. And then he gets like all energetic and then starts getting into it. And then the guest starts speaking, and then like the pressure's off of me. You know? Yeah. Wow. So it depends. Yeah. But I like it. There's a flow to it. What's good is that Leon, you know, from his background as a therapist too, he has like this, I mean, I'm not to say I don't have like a wealth of knowledge, but he has this like a lot of things that he can grasp from, and it really it's very helpful when we have certain academic guests on, or authors, and like I don't know, it's like they kind of, it's not that I don't see eye to eye, but I feel like more often than not, like that's why like he'll start the questioning of the podcast, in my opinion. Like I'll usually do the intro. I'm like, hey, you know, welcome to Seize the Moment podcast. We have this is their intro. This is their bio. Welcome. Right. And then always he'll start with the question. I think only one time have I ever started with a question for somebody, and we did it backwards.
I don't even remember.
There you go. That's because 99% of the time we do it this other way.
Sure. Wow. You are doing an awesome job. You know, it's very interesting. You know,
I think like if you're interviewing this is what it's like for me. If I'm interviewing on my own, I said this to him before too, it feels like a job, right? Not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not as enjoyable. So it's like, if I were getting paid for this, like, let's say, and you know, I have whomever on, and let's say I'm doing a solo interview, I'm like, okay, cool, like I'm getting paid for it, that's fine. I mean, this is what I signed up for. But it's like with us, this does not work, right? Like us all together kind of shooting the shit here, this does not work. So even when we have guests on, it doesn't feel like work. But whenever I do solo interviews, I'm drained, man. I'm completely drained. And every single time I tell myself, okay, I don't want to do this again. Unfortunately, sometimes, like, you know, just schedules conflict, and we're not able to do it, right? And whatever, I'll do it, I'll get it done. But yeah, man, I gotta say, when I do solo interviews, I very rarely enjoy it.
Wow.
Yeah, not to say that I wouldn't do it or it's a bad thing. It's just that it's not fun for me, right? I'm like, it's a job. Like, I feel like I'm actually like doing work, which I don't know, man. I'm like, I don't want to do that for podcasting. That's why I like prefer, you know, that our schedules will work out.
Sure.
It's better when it's kind of like a hang, you know.
Yeah.
There's times when like we know that it's Sunday and it's time for a guest, and then sometimes, you know, because we're expecting it every week, in that sense, sometimes it feels like a job or a discipline, like in that sense.
Yeah.
But every time when we actually start, like when we actually start like riffing, we'll actually start having conversation, all those expectations of like, oh, it's Sunday coming or this or that, which doesn't even happen all the time. But when it does, like that gets destroyed. Sure. Because it's something I learned too. Like having expectations of how something's gonna go doesn't help at all. It's always like just start, and then you're going to be completely surprised and usually pleasantly surprised. So
yeah. And Andy, I don't know how much you know about like US radio. I know like now, it's kind of like podcasting now, but like Mike and Mad Dog here, especially in New York. Okay. So it was so Mike Francesa and Mad Dog Russo. So this is back, I mean, it wasn't that, I think they went off the air like 10 years ago, right? When they were together. But yeah, man, there really is no Mike without Mad Dog and vice versa.
Mike and Mad Dog.
Yeah. So like the show, and it's funny too, because like they were so competitive with each other. And look, I think they do okay, because I think Mad Dog has his own like Sirius XM show, and Mike is still doing like the WFAN. What is the radio station?
WFAN.
Like, I was gonna say WFAN. Yeah, WFAN radio station. So he's still doing that. But yeah, man, the show, like everybody, all of the fans, like especially the diehard ones, they're like, nah, man. They're like, one is not good without the other. Like they're fine, right? But they're like, it's not as great as it is when they're together. Yeah. So the thing I think with like radio and podcasting, I know Rogan does this on his own. Good for him. He's comfortable enough in his own skin to have like solo interviews. That's great, right? But I think for the most part, I think it works better with the dynamic, and that's what I think Moo figured out.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting insight there. Very interesting insight. But like I say, it's I've never done any interviews with like a partner or anything like that. So it's, but I do actually get what your point of the expectation of an interview, how it's going to go, or versus how it actually went. You might be pleasantly surprised. It kind of was like that with Mopreme. Getting Mopreme was like, oh wow, I can't do this. But actually, it really went all right. I was nice and calm, nice and relaxed, and but go back an hour before that, I was just terrified. So kind of visualize, I'm trying to visualize how it's going to go to how it went. I was really surprised. So I do actually get your point.
Yeah. And dude, you do the harder thing. So you do the way harder thing. The solo interviews, again, that's much harder than what we do.
Also, you should see. It depends. It depends like what the day is and all that. But sometimes, maybe 60% of the time, 70% of the time before we start a podcast, depending on who the guest is, always before it, even if like I look kind of okay, I'm always like, out of nowhere, I start coughing.
Yeah.
Right. I like extra coughing, a little nervousness. Like I feel it in my chest.
Sure.
And then when we actually start, everything is completely okay and it goes away. But I get the same thing like an hour before, 30 minutes before, 5 minutes before, especially when it's like a few minutes before.
Yeah.
It's so bad. I'm like, oh, I hope, okay, please come into the Zoom room now. Sometimes when somebody's late, like 5 minutes, I'm like, for the first 4 of those 5 minutes, I'm like, and then like after 5 minutes pass, I'm like, oh shit, wait, are they not going to show? And then I calm down completely. I'm like, oh yeah, they're not showing up. Then they show up and I'm like, all right, whatever. And then you keep going with it. But
yeah, man. And during 2020, especially because like 2019 was our first year, and that was okay. And then for 2020, there were actually sleepless nights, man, where like we sometimes, you'd get like, in our minds, like a really big guest. And we're like, oh my God, like you don't want to embarrass yourself. So yeah, you kind of just don't sleep all through the night.
No, I don't. I could sleep. I could do that part. Yeah. But okay, I didn't know that about
you. Oh yeah. Really? We definitely talked about it in 2020. Yeah, where I could literally, so like my stomach would churn, right? And then it was like I'd have to go to the bathroom a million times, like all anxiety, right? Wow. So, and you would get that. I definitely had that. I remember before Alen Levinowitz, because that was literally for that point. I was like, oh my God, like we're gonna have a guest who was on fucking Rogan, like that's crazy, right? So, but like now after like Mood, DDP, Shermer, I'm like, okay, I think now we could kind of like, it's not the biggest deal in the world.
It's crazy that we could even say that.
Yeah,
I still don't really process that the way I properly should. Like sometimes I do, and other times it completely goes out of my mind. Then I hear it again. I'm like, oh yeah, DDP, Shermer, Moo, like, yeah, it's crazy.
And Eric Adams now, right? Who's literally New York City's mayor, right?
Exactly.
It's crazy.
You've kind of like blown up. It's some of the guests that you have had on. It's so awesome to watch you guys grow. as a podcast. And but taking it back, music is a big part of our lives. And Leon, this is a question for you in particular. How did you first get into hip hop, and who did you listen to back then?
All right, I love that question. I'm going to try to keep it a little short, just not to waste everybody's time, because I could ramble on.
Go for it. Rant.
All right, well, okay then. So yes, so at the time I remember I think about let me see, 8th grade. Yeah, 8th grade is 12 years old, right? So I think I was 12. I'm assuming. Yes, I was 12 years old, literally 8th grade, right? At this point, I was only into rock music, right? So it was like Rob Zombie, fucking like Metallica. No, I was never a Metallica fan. It was Kiss, like Guns N' Roses, Rob Zombie. So everything rock, right? So like that was our culture, right? Because I mean, it's like if you're like a white kid from Brooklyn, I mean, what you're mostly going to get is like rock music, right? And then that's like kind of the surrounding area, right? So at the time MTV was like really big. So, I mean, you kind of get like a hodgepodge of like different talent or whatever. And so I don't remember the exact day, but I remember there was a point, vaguely obviously now, but there was a point where I saw, and this was 2001. Wow, no, I'm wrong. It wasn't 8th grade. It was 7th grade. Holy shit, I think it was 11. So yeah, so this was 2001. Pac's Until the End of Time came out, right? So somewhere, and this is not going to be an exact memory, because again, I don't remember this fully, but somewhere I watched Until the End of Time, the song, and I was so fucking blown away by it, man. I was like, holy shit, this song is amazing, right? And like at that point, I really disliked rap music. I was like, it's not, I I didn't think it was just too musical, right? I was like, it seems like just a bunch of guys talking. So and then you hear Until the End of Time, and it's a mix, right? So Mr. Broken Wings, which is obviously not one of my favorite songs, even though people are like, who the fuck is Mr. Right? So one of my favorite songs now, but so they took, the sample from Broken Wings and they made it Until the End of Time. And obviously you had Pac's lyrics, and then you had the rock song, right, in the background. And so, but the way they put it together was, to me, just fucking magical, right? So you hear these lyrics and you're like, oh my God, like some of this, and this is me at like 12 years old or whatever it was, right? And I'm like, some of these lyrics, I'm like, this is actually like what I feel, right? Where he says like, perhaps I was addicted to the dark side, somewhere inside my childhood would this my heart die. And I'm like, oh, and I'm just like me at 12 years old, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I could fucking relate to this. And you see this video, right? And the video is even better than like, so the song is obviously phenomenal. Still my favorite one, not one, it is my favorite song, but then the video itself makes the song even better, right? So the video starts out with like, the record is rolling, and then he's like, yeah, I'm gonna say I'm a thug because it came from the gutter, I'm still here, right? And then you're like, oh my God, like it's just it's epic, right? So it starts out like that, then the song kind of comes on, and then it's like interspersed with like Pac talking like during the trial or before the trial, and he's talking to the media, and then toward the end, and it's like it ends off again super epically, and it's like maybe it's the thug in me, and it kind of fades out, right? So I heard the song and I was like, yo, this shit is amazing, right? So I remember telling my mom, I was like, I need to get this album, right? She's like, not fucking getting you that. She's like every other word is a fuck and a bitch and whatever. She's like, I'm not getting you that. And then my stepdad was like, yeah, dude, you're not listening to rap music. There's no chance in hell. So I don't remember how I got this to happen, but like, I guess I was pretty crafty. So I actually got her to buy me the album, right? So I remember for the longest time, right? Because again, I'm not into rap music at this point, right? And again, I'm a 12-year-old kid. So I listened to the other songs and I'm like, yeah, you know what? Not that great. I'm like, but I still loved Until the End of Time, right? So as I'm kind of going through it, I'm like, okay, no, I'm like, I don't really like this. I'm like, Until the End of Time is really the only song I like. And then somewhere down the line, I don't remember exactly when, but I think maybe now I'm like 12, 13 years old. Then I actually start listening to the album again, right? And throughout these years, literally, I just listened to the 2 versions of this song. And you know what? I'm like, my mom paid for this. Let me just give the rest of this album a chance and let's just see, right? Then, okay, little by little, I'm like, Happy Home. Fucking love that song. I'm like, this is actually a really good song. I'm like, first of all, super mellow, and then it's like super uplifting, right? He talks about like his relationship with his girlfriend and how he kind of want to move out of the projects and how he wants to start a family with her and like escape the life that they were building, or I'm sorry, the life that, well, they were trying to get away from and they were trying to build another one. So, okay, that's great. I'm like, okay, I like Happy Home. And let me see what else was there on that album. All right, Breathing, even though super dark, right? But then I was like, okay, I was like, the piano melody on this is pretty fucking dope. And I was like, still, that's another dope song. And so like little by little, I got into the songs of the album. And now I think there are maybe like 3 songs that I don't really care for. So yeah, over the years, just literally by repetitively listening to it and actually giving it a chance, I was like, dude, this shit is amazing. So then we rewind to 2003 and Better Days comes out, right? So as soon as I hear Thug Mansion, again, the what's it called, the sample for it. Just fucking incredible. I was like, oh my God, I got to get this album, right? So 2003, I pre-order Better Days, and then that becomes one of my favorite albums too. But so just the big question here is like, well, why Pac, obviously, right? It's the message, man. So whereas like with other rap music, the reason why I think I really didn't like it, it was because there was just no affect to it. Like Jay-Z, Nas were popular at the time. And look, Nas is cool. I have nothing against the guy. I do appreciate some of his music. There was nothing there for me, right? I'm like, okay, cool. They talk about like selling drugs. Jay-Z is really big into that. Okay, I guess, sure, you're an entrepreneur. Understood. I'm like, everybody I fucking know in this neighborhood selling drugs. So he didn't seem that special to me. So I'm like, cool. You're an entrepreneur. That's fine. Nas, I'm like, okay, Nas is super talented and clever. So I'm like, I can appreciate that. Would I buy a Nas album? No. So, but with Pac, right, there was something different because like you felt like he was talking to you not only obviously from his own soul, but he was talking from the communal soul. Yeah. So he was giving you these perspectives about what was going on in these communities, right? And then, so it was just so important because it wasn't just his perspective, right? Because like with Jay-Z, it was more like, okay, this is how I came up and like, this is why you should admire me, right? I never got that sense from Pac, man. It was never like, oh, here, I mean, I'm sure some of the songs are like this, but it was not like, oh, here's why you should admire me. That wasn't the message of his music. The message is, here's why you should give a shit about us, right? Here are all of the things that we're going through. And then as you're kind of going through it and you're learning about the person, right? You're like, oh my God, man, this guy, bro, Brenda's got a baby because literally they're like these young fucking like 8, 7, no, I'm sorry, not 8. So they're like these 11, 12-year-old girls who are having babies in this neighborhood and they're like fucking being abused by their family members. They have like their uncles and shit, like trying to have sex with them. Like this crazy shit is actually happening. And here's Pac, he's like, oh, I have this voice and now I got to shine a light on this because this needs to fucking stop. And, he said like, every day I come out of the house, right? He's like, I have to stay strapped because it's like a fucking war zone out here, right? So it wasn't like that with Jay-Z, man. Like he kind of glamorized the projects, right? It was more like, yeah, this is a hard life and it really fucking sucks. But here's why I'm so amazing, right? Because I'm so smart and I kind of came out of this. Again, here's why you should admire me. Okay, cool. Again, nothing against that, just not for me, right? But again, with Pac, it was so different because the idea was like, no, this is why we need fucking help, right? I'm not doing this to particularly make money. I mean, yeah, I want to make money to get out of here, but I'm doing this because like we're all fucking we're starving, we're struggling, we need help. My mom is on fucking crack, right? Which is like insane because here's this person who was a prominent member of the Black Panthers and now the government and like the kind of culture around her beat her down. This is what she's resorted to. She can't take care of her kids. I'm fucking being taken care of by a pimp, right? And like there was, again, not to kind of ramble on, there's this really great scene in Unsolved, which is I think my favorite scene in any film or show ever. So it kind of goes into, so it's Pac as a kid, right? So he's, so I love like the camera angles on this because this is so masterfully done. So it's like they go from like modern day and then it goes back into the 70s and like the camera's coming up and it's in the Bronx apartment, right? So the camera's going up and it's him just hanging out on the fire escape, right? And he's reading he's fucking like 10 years old in the clip, right? And he's reading Another Country by James Baldwin. This is actually the background on my Facebook, this snippet. So it's like this little Pac like reading James Baldwin and then his mom comes up to him, right? And then she's like, oh, hey, like, I'm home. How's your day? He's like, we don't have food again. And then she's like, oh man, I know. And then he's like, what are we supposed to eat? And she's like, I know, man, you got to be a little bit tough. She's like, I don't know what to tell you. She's like, but like we had like some bread. He's like, yeah, I gave it to Seth, like, his sister. He's like, I made her like, whatever sandwich of whatever we had left. And then so like, they're kind of talking through it and you could see that she's trying so hard and yet this kid is still fucking struggling, right? Literally my relationship with my mom when I was a kid. So what you get with Pac is that unlike somebody like Jay-Z, because again, we're not going to identify with that, man. Most of us are not selling crack and becoming entrepreneurs in that respect, right? And most of us are not multimillionaires. What you get with Pac is you get the story of everybody who lived in the fucking projects, or at the very least lived in like these kind of like impoverished communities, if not like the projects, right? So you get this picture of what is going on in the inner cities and what is going on in the world that other people want to shy away from. So that's why I love Pac so much. So in the beginning, it was like, oh, I identify with him, right? Because obviously I'm like a self-absorbed kid, but then it became like, oh my God, he's telling us something important about all of these communities. So it's not even so much about like, I can relate to him, this makes me feel better, but it's like, oh my God, this actually can give us a purpose and this can help make the world a better place.
Wow. He's impacted your life so much. That's awesome to hear, because I kind of have a similar kind of story to you, Leon. Just when he says he's, going through this kind of stuff that he's going through in his life, that's kind of what I went through not obviously not the same circumstances, but when you're going through, turmoil and, growing up and the troubles that you go through, it's kind of like he pulls you in with his words, and, you do feel it inside. And I kind of relate to what you were saying there, Leon. I mean, talking about the impact that he had growing up, what is the impact today of Tupac in your life now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So now it's more so about, like, again, going back from, that selfish of I understand, or I'm sorry, he understands me right now, I get to feel better. Now it's more so taking his message and applying it in the broader context, right? So I would say one of the major reasons why I became, I guess I would call it, at some point I would have called myself a socialist, not so much, but the reason why I would identify as a progressive, and partially why I'm a therapist, I mean, there's not going to be one source to any of this, right, was because he got me to focus on the community, right? So I was like, oh, okay, great, right? So now that I can identify with him, right, and now that I'm going through this, right, what would I have wanted as a kid, right? Oh, nice. I would have probably wanted somebody to have given a shit, right? I would have maybe even wanted a therapist, right? That would have been really nice. So what I'm trying to do in some way, right, and I'm not saying this is just like all completely selfless. Obviously, I make a living and a pretty decent one too. But the point is that, like, for me, it's like I'm giving people what I needed and wanted as a kid. And that goes back to Pac, man, because what Pac was pretty much saying was like, hey, guys, here are all of these problems. Please fucking send help, right? And the question, and another question, I'm sorry, the song that kind of comes to mind with that is Letter to the President, right? He writes this letter to Bill Clinton at the time, and he's like, yo, this is really fucked up, right? And you guys are not doing anything. And on top of that, you're actually making things worse because you're cutting off welfare. So you're taking these programs from us. You guys are supposed to be fucking Democrats and on our side. So you're taking these programs from us and you're going to leave us starving, right? And, the implication there is we're not all going to be Jay-Z, right? We're not all going to go and sell crack. And, oh, by the way, the great thing about Pac was that I know he said that he wasn't good at selling crack. Here's my interpretation of that. I think it's not that he wasn't good at it. It doesn't take genius to be good at selling crack. I think it's just inside morally, I don't think he was able to do that to his community. For somebody who cared so much about other people, I don't think that he felt that he can actually sell crack to them and then look at himself in the mirror at the end of the day. I know he doesn't say that. He's like, it was just really hard for me and I had to give it up. I wonder why it was hard for him, right? So my thing is like, so he got me to look at the broader community and ask myself, okay, like if these are problems that I'm having too, right? And these are sort of needs that I would have wanted back in those days, right? I would have wanted a great sort of school counselor. I would have wanted a therapist. I would have wanted somebody to kind of intervene in my family situation, right? How can I do that? How can I be that person to do that for other people? And I feel like that's what I do with therapy, because essentially, even like, let's say, I mean, I'm not solving anybody's familial problems, obviously, nor can I. But the point is that, like, especially for the kids that I see, well, they're not kids, they're like 18, 19, 20, whatever. But for those people, I feel like I'm providing for them, hopefully, the thing that I felt like I needed and didn't get at that age. And that's partially due to Pac, right? Because again, he got you to take that kind of spotlight and that focus to take it off yourself and look at other people and ask yourself, like, okay, man, if you've suffered as much as you did, right? How can you now prevent, and wouldn't you want to now prevent other people from suffering in the same ways?
Sure. Well, it's interesting. It's so interesting that it kind of like spark your brain.
Yes, and that's what he wanted to do, man. And so the best quote from Pac, literally just hands down, where he said, look, man, he's like, when I say thug life, right, so there are going to be people who hear it and, it's going to be like a fad and they're going to pick it up and they're going to like it and they're going to sort of rock to it and then they're going to put it down and they're going to move the fuck on, right? And of course that's happened and that happens all the time, right? But he's like, I'm literally doing this for the kid that lives a thug life and feels like it's hopeless, because he's going to hear it, right? And it's going to mean something different to him than the person who's just picking it up as a fad, right? And that's the thing I love about Pac, is that, like, so he was really smart in this respect. So he did popular music, like, when he talked about, like, having sex with women, making money or whatever. I get it. Radio hits, people have to know you. Understandable. I don't blame him for that, right? It is what it is. And I like those songs too. So, but the point there is that, like, when you look at the other music, right, the more kind of spiritually uplifting stuff, and, T.I. did something like this similarly when he did the entire album on Black Lives Matter. And he even said, he's like, yo, it didn't sell, but he's like, I'm happy that I did it, right? That's the stuff that sort of brought me and kind of attached me to Pac, was because I was like, okay, so here's this person who doesn't just care about money. He doesn't just care about, like, him, like, bringing himself out of the projects and, kind of living lavishly, buy mansions or whatever. Like, no. He wants to bring his community out of this. So he wants to use his voice to bring people in and to send for help, right? So he's like, so you have, like, rappers on the other end who are like, oh, cool, I get to get the fuck out of there. So they're running in the other direction, right? And here's Pac in the community sort of screaming SOS, right? Send help, bring people in. That's what I loved about him.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's crazy, the power of music, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, like, the things that we talk about on our show, the books we read, the audio books we listen to, other podcasts we listen to, it's great. And it's a great way for people to absorb knowledge and like to kind of get these kinds of messages, right? But sometimes when you get it in a song, it hits different.
Yeah.
Something happens where you'll get goosebumps. Like the message that they're sending hits you the right way. It's not just something that you get intellectually and you're like, okay, I intellectually understand. Like you actually feel like the answer there. And I don't know, but yeah, sorry, what were we gonna say?
Yeah, I mean, coming to you, Alen, growing up, you wasn't a big hip hop fan, but was you into Eminem? Is that correct?
So, all right. So, I mean, that's one of my first entrances into rap and hip hop. So, when I grew up, I was listening to Linkin Park, right?
Mhm.
So that's not really, I don't really think that counts too much.
I do
It's
actually. So Chester was a bit of a rapper.
Yeah.
So Chester
yeah.
did
Mhm.
more rock, and then Mike Shinoda was more
Yeah.
of the rapper
Yeah,
in that crew, right? And so that was kind of my first entry point.
They were
But I
dope.
didn't even understand. They were no,
Yeah.
absolutely, to this day, hell yeah, absolutely. So that's my first entry point. And yeah, I'd listen to the music, and it did inspire me to feel and think in different ways for sure. But I remember even at that time, I was like, no, I still, I don't really like rap or hip hop. I didn't get it, right? I was kind of like how Leon described, like in our neighborhood, we kind of grew up more with a lot of rock influence, right? But then I was watching this movie with Keanu Reeves where he's like a baseball coach.
Oh, Hardball! I love that.
Hardball.
Love that movie. Big Papa. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you know where I'm
of
going with
course.
this.
I seen
So-
that movie like 10 million times.
So I watched the movie, and he's in a bad neighborhood. He's teaching kids baseball. He's like it's after school program, and he at first like they're kind of at odds with him. He's like this white guy. He's kind of corny and all that shit. And then but then he eventually builds bonds with them.
Yeah.
Right. And just in general, it's a great movie.
Man.
And
Classic.
at one point, one of the little kids in the movie comes up, I forgot, with a radio or something like that. I forgot.
Yes.
And he starts playing.
No, it's a headset. He had the
Headset?
Walkman. Yeah. So
Yeah,
because
and-
he couldn't pitch like unless he was like listening to Big Papa because he had like an anxiety disorder.
Exactly. So he would put it on and be like, I love it when you call me Big Papa. Throw your hands in the air.
If
He's a true player, right?
Yeah.
And then, so at that time, I was like, whoa, what's that? I was like, that sounds really, I like that. And that was like, I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, like that's a whole other level of music that I don't really expose myself to. There were things, by the way, that were coming to me in the mainstream anyway, that maybe I just wasn't registering at the time. Cause I like not Seal. I don't know why I'm thinking of Seal. wait. But like let's say I was like okay, but not that. Like Fresh Prince, let's say, right? So like that song "Summertime" with him and Jazzy Jeff.
Yeah.
So that was like apparently I must have heard that before I heard the Big Papa song and like other things too that I just didn't register as like me liking rap or hip hop or just like soul, but like when I first heard it in that movie, then my world kind of opened up. Then I started to like actually not be like, oh, I don't like rap, I don't listen to rap, like whatever that mentality was. I opened myself up and I started to listen to it, and then I started hearing like if you really listen to the lyrics, and also before that I kind of listened to lyrics but not so much. Like, yeah, even like Linkin Park and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I eventually started listening to the lyrics and appreciating the music more.
Sure.
But before that, it was all about what sounds cool.
Yeah.
Right. Which is fine. If you're a younger kid, you kind of want to just pick what sounds cool. You might not be analyzing everything, which is, you don't have to. What's the point? Sometimes it's just about how you feel with the music.
Right.
But yeah, then you start to listen to the lyrics in some of these songs, and they could really change the way you feel and think about things. Like now I'm shifting a little bit, but there was this, I don't think they count as rap. It sounds like that he's rapping, but I don't know. There's this group, it's called there's a song called Car Radio by 21 Pilots. So it's not really rap. I mean, it sounds like he's rapping, but I don't know. I don't get like a rap like vibe from there. But I would recommend like anyone to listen to the song. It's actually pretty deep. Like he starts it's basically like a self monologue about like his car radio and how he lost his car radio, and now he's just sitting in silence in his car, and he has no distractions anymore from what's real or something like that. So like basically the car radio must have been like whatever his thoughts are about his life, or think like whatever his sense of direction in life was, or something like that. And the moment he lost his car radio, how he feels. And this is like not a great way to describe the song really, but it's so deep. Like I wish I had the lyrics. Do you want to just take over for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, take over. I'll be there.
Oh yeah, okay. But yeah, man, just going into fucking hardball, because I love that you mentioned that as an example. Do you, by the way, Alan, know? So do you know what they call the Tampa Bay Buccaneers second receiver, Chris Godwin?
No.
G baby.
Oh,
so
from
yeah,
the movie.
yeah, from the movie. Yeah, so he literally took the name. So it's like it's kind of interesting because you see like how these kids like grow up, and like now obviously we're all grown men, right? But this movie came out in 2002, and that was like one of the dopest things ever. And there was this really great scene in the end, right? So like the other coach ends up taking. Now let me just finish this before you go. So the other coach ends up like taking away the Walkman because it's like against baseball rules, and they're like, oh no, the guy if he wants to pitch, he can't pitch with the Walkman on. So the entire team sings not only the melody. What was it? Yeah, they sing the chorus for Big Papa as he's pitching. Wow. So because he can't listen to it on the Walkman, you had to like calm him down. That was so cool. One of the best scenes in like film history.
Yeah, and plus also the spoiler alert, the kid dies in the movie.
Yeah, G-Baby.
Yeah, it was so sad. Yeah. When that happened, I was like, oh, how could you do that? But then they had to win their game and all that kind of that. So it kind of built the story.
That was so wild.
But it was messed up that he died. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so back to that song from before, from 21 Pilots. Mm-hmm. There's this one. So it's not I'm not gonna read the whole song, but some of the lines that got me.
5 minutes later.
So there's this part here. It's like, I have these thoughts so often I ought to replace that slot with what I once bought, because somebody stole my car radio and now I just sit in silence. And then he goes into, I ponder of something terrifying, because this time there's no sound to hide behind. I find over the course of our human existence, one thing consists of consistence, and it's that we're all battling fear. Oh dear, I don't know if we know why we're here. Oh my, too deep. Please stop thinking. I liked it better when my car had sound. And then I'll say this. There are things we can do, but from the things that work, there are only two. And from the two that we choose to do, peace will win and fear will lose. It is faith and there's sleep. We need to pick one, please, because faith is to be awake, and to be awake is for us to think, and for us to think is to be alive. And I will try with every rhyme to come across like I am dying to let you know that you need to try to think. And then it goes into more.
That's rap. Yeah.
Rap. That is rap.
Mm-hmm. That is. Yeah.
100% rap. Wow.
Mm-hmm. That's really dope.
21 Pilots, did you say?
Yeah, it's a song called Car Radio. Okay. And like I remember I first heard that song like early in college. And when you hear like stuff like that, especially with the tune of the song, like however I just read it is fine. But when you actually hear him do it,
sure,
you get goosebumps, and there's even more to the song that might make you even feel even like better. So that was just like a snippet. Yeah,
I love that.
Wow, I've got to check that out. But tell us about your love of rock music. Before you got into rap. I mean, did you relate more to rock music than rap music?
Yeah, well, I think it was like it was kind of cool because like my brother was born in the 80s. Uh-huh. So like I got a lot of that influence of like hair metal. I mean, he actually eventually changed his taste completely from rock, but that's a different conversation. But
no, he likes reggae.
He likes reggae. That's not true, but yeah. So I was really into like that powerful sound of like guitar solos and like the yelling that like those rock guys do, like those rock screams. Like any hair metal. It's hard to like pick an option. So I don't know. Easy option to pick is Dio, for example. Can you do that song?
Well, holy diver,
Yeah.
you've been down too long in the midnight sea.
Okay, so it was songs like that. It
Mhm.
was songs like that. It wasn't that. So that song I heard much later in life, but like something about, oh yeah, Sebastian Bach, let's say.
That
So
voice, yeah.
he would sing like the song like Youth Gone Wild.
Yes.
And
Yes.
like it was just it's like they call us problem child. They put our lives on trial.
Yeah.
We walk this endless mile. We are the youth gone wild. But like, and then like all these beats and stuff like that, especially when the song kind of breaks down. I remember that was like a big thing when I was younger. I don't listen to it so much these days. I like to think my music tastes like just kind of develop. I still love the songs if I listen to them, but you know how like there's some songs that you used to listen to all the time, and now if you heard it, you'd be like, okay, it's a good song, but it doesn't get you the way it used to.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Kind of. It's hard. There was just like an intensity, like this sort of intensity to the rock music, and it felt like there was so much stimulation going. I also liked power metal.
Mhm.
So not like so by the way, Dragon Force is cool, like that song Through the Fire and the Flames. I had no problems with it, but there was this group I heard, it's called Master Plan, and I remember I heard this song called Spirit Never Dies, and I heard it when I was like early teens.
Sure.
And I'm not gonna do the lyrics how I did with the other song, but I remember like his scream, I can't reproduce it, but it's like I have no words for it. It would just put you in awe.
Mhm.
You know, I recommend like somebody checks out that song, if anything. Maybe if somebody's listening, check out Master Plan Spirit Never Dies. They would find that it's a cool song. It definitely gets you going, and it feels like old school rock, along with those like the screams and that intensity.
Wait,
And
was Jorn the lead singer at the time?
I think so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jorn is super dope. He's one of my favorite singers now. He's like it's fucking just crazy. He is the new Dio.
Yeah, and there's another guy, Alen Land,
Yeah.
Who sings with him.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, he has like a million collaborations. So he does a bunch of stuff. He has like his own like band, like with his namesake, Jorn. And then he does, I don't know if he still does Master Plan stuff anymore.
I was into also System of a Down, Disturbed,
Okay.
Korn back in the day. Korn not so much now, because like now that I actually like look at lyrics sometimes now, I realize that it was a little darker than I understood when I was younger, which is fine. Darkness is cool. There's nothing wrong with darkness. Just I don't like relate as much to it now.
Yeah.
9 Inch Nails was cool back in the day. But a lot of people like that song, like I hurt myself today, whatever.
I like the Johnny Cash version.
Yeah, the
more.
Johnny Cash version too. I wasn't so much into that, but there was this other song. Can I say? I could say it. Whatever. I could curse, right?
No,
I feel
no
like this is
cursing
so-
on
I feel
Andy's
like, I feel
show.
like this is so
No, no.
far from my like persona on the podcast. I'm about to say. There, whatever. I like 9 Inch Nails. I'll just skip it. I'm not gonna say this.
Oh God.
That song. I wanna fuck you like an animal. That
There
song
we
was
go.
really good. I just feel like now somebody's gonna hear this from our podcast, like, oh my God, Alan, I didn't know you.
He's gonna
talked
get
like that."
canceled.
He's
He's
gonna
literally
get
gonna get
canceled now.
canceled.
No, I'm just fine. I'm fine.
It's the explicit version.
Just the explicit version. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, like Chop Suey, System of a Down was big at the time when that first came out. Disturbed, I liked for many, many years.
Mhm.
I don't listen to them so much these days. They still come out with new stuff, so I keep up with it.
Okay.
But yeah, like some years ago, yeah, I would really get into the lyrics for their songs. Like I think I brought it up the last time we talked, where it was like this song. It's called "Who Taught You How to Hate," and like it like when I first heard that song, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. I kind of forget what, but I started like listening to that song, and I'm like, and some of the lyrics, if I remember correctly, it's like, oh, who taught you how to hate? Because it isn't in your blood.
Mhm.
And yeah, like the lyrics, it caught me. And like he says it in a really powerful way. So it's kind of like that power of music again to like kind of make you think about like, yeah, like somebody did probably teach somebody else how to hate. Like, are we born automatically hating, or is this something that maybe is taught to us by our culture, our environment, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it started making me think of like, what else can you teach, right? Like if there's some kind of like forces at play that's like pushing people to be like negative or cause harm or do like really unnecessary things in the world, or lead to famine, poverty, things like that. I was wondering like what other, what kind of forces, is there a way to manipulate it in a positive way? I know the word manipulation is not like, I mean, it sounds bad, like as a bad, but like, yeah, if you could influence things in a good way. So like, yeah, songs like that made me think of concepts like that.
Yeah, and a lot of these people, like, they live their words, right? There was, I don't know if you guys saw the documentary on HBO Max on Woodstock 99.
I heard about it.
It's so very good, very like worth the watch. Yeah. So there was I mean, Woodstock 99 was a complete shit show. Like people were literally like fucking raped and like just beaten up and all sorts of crazy shit. And yeah, there was like this one scene from it where the guy, I think he was the lead singer of Sum 41, the punk rock band. I don't know. I guess they're punk rock. So like, yeah. So there was a scene where he's like, yo, you guys need to stop fucking groping the women here. Like, what the hell is going on? He's like, yo, and I think he said something like, if somebody sees somebody groping somebody else, point that motherfucker out, right? And I was like, wow, holy shit, this guy actually stopped his show today. He didn't have to do that, right? Because at this point, like, there was pretty much no security there, right? Even if the shit was going to be on film, nobody's going to know what's going on in the crowd. But I was like, wow, he actually stopped his show to do that. I mean, how many people did it actually save? I don't know, but like, just the fact that he did that was really cool. And because I mean, at that point, like, they couldn't do anything. Like, they were so understaffed that I think the security guards, it was like 1 to 10 for every like 10 people. There was one security guard, if not less. So wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it happens from time to time. Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
No, I think I've seen the clip on there, YouTube.
Yeah.
I think it was, the right thing to do. I mean, like you said, he didn't need to stop the show, but I think it was the right thing to do. But going back to Alan's point, when you hear songs, the lyrics like that, and it makes you feel a certain way, I think it's really powerful when songs do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and being open, like, here's the thing. So again, when I was a kid, I wasn't open to like rap and hip hop as much, because that's just like the default in the culture I grew up in, right? But then one, it started becoming more mainstream, so that helped. And then, but also when I started hearing like certain lyrics that like really powerful lyrics from, whether it's Tupac, doesn't have to be Biggie. I just remember that like which was just cool. That's just like a fun song, but yeah, even sometimes, like, it's weird, I don't know how popular Will Smith is with his music, but like I heard this one song, like Party Starter or something like that. It wasn't actually that, so I don't know why. Now it sounded like I was about to talk about Deep Song, right? It did sound like that.
I was like, oh, okay.
No, remember that song Party Starter by Will Smith? No,
but changed his life.
No, but like there's certain there's lyrics that like feel empowering when you listen to it. Sometimes even like somebody's just describing their experience like at a party, even like it's cool, like it kind of amps you up, right? There's things that music can do to you that regular things may be able to do. It depends on the person, but I even like, and I like podcasts, I like to read and all that kind of stuff, but like honestly, it's when I listen to music that I really get that inspired feeling. Like a lot of times, and this is true, like somebody might listen to be like, he's just saying that, but like when I'm at the gym, I have like a YouTube like playlist that I'll go through. Sometimes it's like scenes from like shows, or like I like anime, so it might be something from anime or whatever. But other times it's like songs, and it might be like that car radio song that I was talking about before, or something similar. And it really you really think, and you start to feel differently while you're like, for me, while I'm working out, I get more energy from listening to some lyrics. And in ways that if I didn't have the music on, it's very hard to amp yourself up. Maybe you could say something and amp yourself up for a few seconds, but you listen to a song and it really hits you the right way emotionally.
Yeah.
You have energy for like the next while. Exactly. And like, yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, do you use music as an inspiration to, when you're planning your episodes? I mean, to get you in the right mindset, either the night before or right before, maybe an hour before?
Oh, that's cool.
That's a really great question. No,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I know what you mean. No. I've heard. Okay, so I've heard, for example, Joe Rogan, before he does a set, like comedy set, he'll listen to music before he goes on stage to put him in a certain space mentally.
Right.
So okay, so yeah, so for example, when Leon just came over, there was like music playing, but not like a song like you'd imagine. It was something from this it's like from the soundtrack from this game Kingdom Hearts, and it's just like this really nice mellow thing with like rain in the background, like coming down. Just something, just to have something to chill on before we start. So like I guess you could say that, but not really to amp myself up, more to
calm down.
Yeah, because I get like how we talked about earlier, sometimes I'll get nerves maybe before starting. So if I have something calm playing, that kind of puts me into the right mindset.
Sure.
So yeah. What about you?
No, I don't listen to music before. If anything, what I do is I listen to other podcasts before this.
Sure.
Yeah.
What music do you listen to these days?
So same stuff. Literally, my music tastes have not changed at all. I've like tried. So I don't want to get into this too much because I don't want to criticize anybody. Look, I've tried to get into other things. Look, just to be clear, I think like somebody like Juice WRLD is creatively brilliant. I can't listen to that stuff, man. Music about drugs and like dying and passing out and making.
I was about to ask you, what do you think about today's music? Hip hop
cannot do it, man. So again, creatively brilliant. So I watched the Juice WRLD documentary on HBO Max. So he's brilliant, right? Like the way his freestyling ability is literally second to none. Like he's amazing, right? Or was amazing. But the point is, like the music itself, I can't do it. So I'm literally stuck in the 90s. So it's Pac, it's still Dre. What's it called? A lot of rock music. I still listen to Dio, Yorn, Axel, Rudy Pell. Love Johnny Gioeli. He has like a million things going on. He has Crush 40, Hardline. Love that other band. Axel, Rudy Pell. Is there anything else? Still listening to Judas Priest. So yeah, a lot of rock music. And for rap, it's Pac, Dre, Naughty by Nature, who I still like really fucking love. Their songs are fucking timeless as well. Love those dudes. Is there any other group? Oh, Rakim. Rakim is still amazing too, even though like obviously his musical is, I mean, we're talking going back to the 80s. That was even before really my time, but definitely Rakim.
Sure. Wow.
Yeah.
But no, like Kanye?
I can't.
Not new Kanye,
I don't like
Kanye.
any Kanye, man.
No.
So for the first album, the Through the Wire, phenomenal. Like just everything. Melodies are perfect. Lyrics are perfect. I can't listen to this stuff after that, man. It's not good. I'm like, I'm sure he's brilliant, but it's just not good. And it's my same criticism with Juice WRLD, where you feel like, you know what it is? You feel like it's not meaningful or deep. They're just being clever, which is fine. There's a whole market for that, and who the fuck am I, right? These people have like millions upon millions of listeners. I get it. It's not for me. I'm like, if all you have is creativity, I'm like, if I'm just going straight for creativity, I'm gonna just listen to Cameron, because Cameron's music, right, is literally. First of all, Cameron is the most creative. I think Cameron's even better than Juice WRLD. I know people will be like, get the fuck out of here. No, I do. So with Cam, right, you have a guy who's just fucking brilliant, right? He has like this nursery style type of writing. But his lyrics aren't really about anything, right? But that's cool. That was his whole shtick. So if I'm going to listen to anything just for wit, I'll just listen to Cameron.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Interesting. Very interesting. I mean, well, if you guys could be a part of any music group, who would it be?
Oh, I love these questions, man. Oh, yeah. Okay. You already know what I'm going to say. The fucking Outlaws.
Of course.
100% Outlaws. Outlaws before anybody else. Yeah.
Sure.
Damn. All right. I guess. Shit. Disturbed, I guess. If I had to pick somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because already the main guy is bald. I'm bald. We could, rock it up over there. No, I'm just playing. There you go. But yes. Probably Disturbed. Linkin Park, not anymore, because like Chester passed, so
you can pick old Linkin Park. You don't have to pick like today. Pac isn't here, and I still want to be a part of the Outlaws. So
I could pick old Linkin.
Yeah, I'm thinking like 96 Outlaws.
Sure.
All right, now still
Fado, Gaddafi, everybody.
Oh
yeah.
wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, with 2021 behind us, what can you tell us what's coming in 2022 for the podcast?
Oh man, so okay, great question. Just because
here it is. What?
So, okay,
That's
great
funny.
question. Just because, like, in terms of the way we do planning and with guests, like, it's all done really last minute. So there's nothing concretely in place. There's some people who may or may not come on. I wouldn't like mention any specific names because, like, I don't want to look stupid on air. So there are some things in the works. But the point is, what we do is, like, as the books come out, what we end up doing is we either people reach out to us or we reach out to them, and we try to, like, kind of sync up with whatever they're going through, whatever what they're going with, in terms of like their book tours, and then we try to get them on the show. But, like, yeah, man, honestly, this past year was incredibly unpredictable. I feel like we've been booking guests maybe only like 2 weeks out, as opposed to, like, so in 2020, and this is because we had a bunch of people on from the How Do I Live a Good Life book. So in 2020, we had people booked out for months, right? So the entire, for months. I remember March, April, May, literally the entire months were booked, like, back in like February. I think in February we were booked out like 2 to 3 months, which is great. 2021 was nothing like that. So 2021, we literally played it by ear, and we booked people out maybe like 2 weeks. So we're just going to keep doing the same thing. So yeah, touch and
I have
go.
a little something to add there, though. As far as where I think we're heading, I think that I can tell that from how much we've been doing the podcast, like, in terms of the caliber of guests we can get, the kinds of conversations we're having, the comfort that we're building in terms of just, like, I remember it used to be like, again, like, I described that thing, like, we would get nervous or something before a show. It happens less now. It's smoother. Sometimes we just kind of show up, and, like, sometimes we know what we're going to talk about. Sometimes we don't know what we're going to talk about. But either way, somehow we've gotten this kind of competence that kind of keeps growing, as we keep doing this. And some of the things that I see in store for 2022 is we're going to be upping the production level of the podcast.
That's 100%.
100%. We're looking into, like, getting a producer help a little bit. So that'll be interesting. Yeah. We got that going. I also feel like, he's right. Like, yeah, it is like, we'll get a guest sometimes 2 weeks out. So it's a little unpredictable like that. Sure. But still, I have faith that, like, that we could do it, that we'll be able to keep being consistent and just improve how we do things. And yeah.
Yeah, we've gotten better with that, because, like, in 2020 it was like, yeah, we have to have, like, these episodes, like, booked out for whatever months in advance. But, like, after last year, I'm like, yeah, I mean, technically, like, we're good, right? Even if it's done a couple of weeks, and even if, let's say, somebody's like, oh, I'm busy for, like, the next month or two, that's fine. We'll just find other people and book them for, like, a month or two or whatever in advance. But
also, there's just the thing. Yeah, now I remember what I wanted to say. Momentum, right? We have this momentum building since late 2018, right?
No, it's 2019 technically. We started April.
I forget when we started. So anyway,
2010.
Yeah, way back then. No, so but we have this momentum that keeps building. The more confidence we get, the more guests we get. I feel like it becomes easier and easier. There's a level to it that's always, there's challenges, but I have faith that it's going to be a better year than last year.